Rana ji, Parag Sehgal ji, Udaya, Arun ji, Amitabh ji, and all our members present at this session. First of all, thank you for inviting me to this Amcham event. The US-India partnership heralded by Amcham is an extremely important strategic step in achieving our goals towards accelerating the civil aviation transformation in India. We have a very, very strong partnership with many companies based in the US. I think also cooperation on civil aviation at this level between our two countries is extremely important to be able to achieve synergies amongst our two countries. And I think today the topic that you have all chosen, sustainability, as an industry, as an enterprise, is extremely important across any industry across the world today. We are stakeholders in our enterprise, in our companies, but we also have to act as responsible global citizens. And to that end, I think the topic of sustainable aviation is something that we must hold close to our hearts. As important as the bottom line is to each one of us as stakeholders in a balance sheet of our companies, similarly, it should be as important in terms of conservation of the globe, because we hold the globe and Mother Earth in our hands as fiduciary members to pass on to the next generation. And it is our responsibility as members, as global members today, to ensure that we pass on a eco-friendly world, a world full of natural wonders, as opposed to only the man-made wonders that we look at from city to city across the world. And I think to that end, our role in the aviation business to make sure that it's a sustainable world is an extremely important social goal that we all hold close to our hearts. And as a minister, I think it's extremely important that I tend to in terms of my remit and my responsibility. Now, the Honorable Prime Minister has already pledged to achieve net carbon zero emissions by the year 2070, by which means that our proportion of carbon emissions on a global basis has to decline and get substituted. But this, keep in mind that as stakeholders in the aviation business, the fact is that our stake in carbon emissions is a paltry 2% of global CO2 emissions, which is about 1 billion tons, which we emit on a global basis every year. But having said that, I think that as Salil emphasized, that as we are now thankfully reapproaching normalcy, and we have attained in India pre-COVID levels of passenger traffic on a daily basis. Last week we hit the high of 4.07 lakh passengers per day, which is 0.4 million per day. Pre-COVID we were around that level of roughly about 4.1 lakh. So we are bouncing back, if I quote unquote may use that term. And having said that, we have very, very strong positive forecasts for the coming years. We were roughly at about close to about 20 crore passengers, 25 crore passengers pre-COVID. We are going to jump 39% from a low of 11.5 crores last year to 20 crores this year. This last year, year ending 31st of March. We are looking at roughly 40 crore passengers by the year 24-25. And so therefore you're looking at phenomenal growth coming out of India. And keeping that in mind, we are ensuring that we build out a very large number of airports. In our country, we have 141 airports as we speak. That number is going to go close to 200 by the year 25-26. We are increasing capacity in all our metros. Delhi, which is at 70 million passenger throughput per year, will go to 100 million. The airport in Bombay, which is at full capacity, we are building out a new airport in Navi Mumbai. Similarly, in Chennai and in Bangalore, in Chennai and new, we are looking out for a site for a new airport. In Bangalore and Hyderabad, we are roughly at about 25 million passenger throughput. The capacity is going to be increased to about 40 million. And so if you look at just these 4 or 5 airports alone, you're talking about a capacity of close to upwards of 240 million passenger throughput capability on an annual basis. Now, keeping all of that in mind, A, the forecast for passenger traffic going up, B, the airport capacity increasing, similarly fleet capacity increasing. We have grown from 410 planes to roughly about 710 of a fleet capacity as of today. We are going to be looking to adding close to about 100 planes per year at a bare minimum. We are looking at doubling that capacity in the next 4 years or 5 years. And therefore, you're looking at a huge quantum jump in terms of infrastructure capability as well as fleet size and the number of flights that are going to be flown, both domestically and internationally, because we're also encouraging wide-bodied aircraft to be acquired by our carriers. So there's going to be a quantum jump in our capabilities in the years to come, which means that we need to be acting responsibly towards the environment, towards Mother Earth. And therefore, I have mandated that by 2024, 96 of the Airports Authority of India airports will work 100% on a renewable energy basis. And this is a very ambitious target given the fact that today, apart from Cochin and Delhi, none of the airports have really taken off on a green initiative basis. And therefore, by 2024, at least from the public sector, you will have 96 airports and hopefully many more from the private sector as well that are going to be working 100% on renewable energy. So mandating the use of renewable energy is now going to become a part of the bid document that is going to be put out for any PPP airport. So it's no longer an option, it's now going to be part and parcel of the clauses of the bid agreement. Secondly, we're going to undertake a very arduous exercise of carbon mapping of each and every single airport in this country. And therefore, we're going to define the metrics, we're going to look at benchmarks, we're going to map energy consumption, and based on doing all of that, we're going to then come out with a green plan for each and every single airport. And that green plan is going to have short-term milestones and then longer-term targets. I see this greening of our airports, environmentally sustainable, environmentally sensitive airports, as a challenge and also a great opportunity for India to take the lead across the world in promoting sustainable aviation. Now that's as far as the airport infrastructure is concerned. Now airlines also have a very, very important role to play in this. And as I see it, our airlines are moving very, very rapidly towards fuel efficiency as part of their strategic program. They continue to replace the aircraft in their fleet with much more fuel efficient engines. We have already looked at 10 new aircraft models that are being acquired where the engines are between 15 to 20% more fuel efficient than the previous ones. And also the question of SAF, sustainable aviation fuel or blended fuel, is something that is foremost in our minds and today is the buzzword. I really do feel that we must look at the capability and the quality of our feedstock which is available. SAF requirement, if you do an analysis, if you look at, let's say, in the first analogy, only 5% of your levels of ATF being converted to SAF, then you're looking at a demand of roughly about 0.7 million tons in a country that has the capability to manufacture feedstock of close to about 12 million tons. So you're looking at roughly close to a sliver of about 5% of the capability of India's feedstock production. That being said, there is a key issue, which is the cost of feedstock. But I do believe here that the economies of scale argument will come in, as has come in many other technologies such as mobile phones and others, and as the volume of production of feedstock goes up, the costs, the economic costs will decline tremendously. But there is a need to work out the issue of utilization and production of feedstock. And I think here we need to concentrate on the technology that also converts alternative feedstock apart from agrarian product, such as garbage, used cooking oil, agricultural residues, into valuable inputs that will produce SAF. And I think the two things that we need to look at are, one, a robust infrastructure, and two, supply chain and logistics. Infrastructure is important to be able to produce fuel from raw material, as well as to be able to store that fuel. Logistics is extremely important to make sure that we are able to transport that fuel towards the end user, whether it's airlines or others. And I think towards that end, the concept of integrated logistics and the whole of government approach of the Prime Minister with the Gati Shakti program is going to achieve a tremendous amount towards fulfilling that goal and that aim. So I think that the quickest path to adoption towards sustainable aviation is, in my mind, through the route of SAF, sustainable aviation fuel. I think that's the most achievable pathway, and there are a few airlines in our country that have already experimented with it. Some of our ATRs have used SAF as 25% feedstock into one of the engines on flights, and they have been successful in blending ATF with SAF and using it on commercial flights. And I think more of the same needs to be adopted. The advantage, of course, is that SAF can be just dropped literally into a conventional engine and be used as fuel going forward. Across the world, almost 330,000 flights have used SAF as an alternative blended feedstock. So therefore, commercially, it's the most logical quick win step going forward. But I must add here that though India is extremely committed, we must look at the principle of CBDR, common but differentiated responsibilities, because as many of you are aware, India is on the S-shaped curve of evolution of an industry, pretty much very much into the transition from its nascency phase at the bottom of the S curve into the growth phase. So we are in very, very early days of growth compared to many of the more developed, mature markets in the world. And therefore that fact must be kept in mind. Having said that, India's effort in achieving carbon neutrality and sustainability must be seen through the lens of our growing needs of civil aviation as well. On a per capita basis, our CO2 emissions in the area of civil aviation are pretty much the lowest in the world due to our very low penetration rate of roughly about 8%. Only 144 million people in our country today use civil aviation as a route of transportation out of a population of 1.3 billion. And therefore there is tremendous fillip and opportunities for growth of the sector. So it must be seen through this lens of common and differentiated responsibilities. But having said that, I must reaffirm once again that we are committed to our nationally determined contribution towards sustainability, and with the very strong public-private sector cooperation that we have at the grassroots level in India, I see this moving forward extremely rapidly towards us being a very socially responsible, ecologically responsible nation in the days to come. I wish you all the very best, and I think that this initiative of Amcham is a very welcome initiative. It creates awareness, brings about a tremendous sense of responsibility between amongst our members as well, to be able to achieve this social global goal, which is extremely important to our existence. Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you.